Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 5, Vidura's Talks with Maitreya. So, yesterday we have seen that finally Uddhavji, he proceeds to Badrikashram. Vidura, he stays in Vrindavan for some time and moves towards the banks of Ganga. And there he is going to meet Maitreya Muni. So we come to text 1. Sri Shuka Uvacha Dvari Dunadya Rishabha Kurunam Maitreyamasina Vagada Bodham Kshatta Upasrutyachyuta Bhava Siddha Prapacha Saushilya Guna Bhitruptaha. Translation.
Gurudeva Goswami said, Vidura, the best amongst the Kuru dynasty, who was perfect in devotional service to the Lord, thus reached the source of the celestial Ganges river, Haridwar, where Maitreya, the great, fathomless learned sage of the world, was seated. Vidura, who was perfect in gentleness and satisfied in transcendence, inquired from him. Purport. Vidura was already perfect due to his unalloyed devotion to the infallible Lord. The Lord and the living entities are qualitatively the same by nature, but the Lord is quantitatively much greater than any individual living entity. He is ever infallible, whereas the living entities are prone to fall under the illusory energy. Vidura had already surpassed the fallible nature of the living entity in conditional life due to his being Achyuta Bhava, or legitimately absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord. His stage of life is called Achyuta Bhava Siddha, or perfection of by dint of devotional service. Anyone, therefore, who is absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord is a liberated soul and has all admirable qualities. The learned sage Maitreya was sitting in a solitary place on the bank of the Ganges at Haridwar, and Vidura, who was a perfect devotee of the Lord and possessed all good transcendental qualities, approached him for inquiry. Hare Krishna.
So now Vidura Dwari Dunadyaha. At the source of Dunadyaha, the celestial river Ganga, Vrishabha Kuruna. This is the best of the Kuru, Viduraji, he approached Maitreya Muni. And there are the qualities of Vidura, Saushilya Gunabhritaptaha, that he was already perfect in gentleness and satisfied in transcendence. And he began to inquire from the great Muni, Maitreya Muni. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that Vidura was already perfect due to his unalloyed devotional service and had all the good qualities. And we know that. So there are two things here. One thing is the Jiva, Atma, has all the good qualities of Paramatma, almost all. So Atma is divine, but because he is entrapped in the matter, he has forgotten his divinity. But as soon as the Atma begins to perform devotional service, all these good qualities will begin to manifest. The Supreme Lord has all the qualities, but the quantity of these qualities is infinite. Right? Qualitatively, we are one with the Lord, but quantitatively, there is a difference. And Srila Prabhupada is stressing here the importance of understanding this, a difference between Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Further, Srila Prabhupada quotes Achyuta Bhava, that one who is absorbed in devotional service of the Lord, Achyuta Bhava Siddha, this is the words used for Vidurji here. Such a personality is already a liberated soul and having all the admirable qualities. So this is very important. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavate akinchana sarvair gunair tatra samasate suraha. Harava bhaktas. We have seen that. That anybody who is engaged in pure devotional service, all the good qualities will eventually start manifesting within him. And we have seen ample examples of this. People coming from all different backgrounds, and when they take on to devotional service, they just blossom in their divine qualities. What to speak of Vidura? Now he approached Rishi Maitreya at Haridwar, that is the source of river Ganga, and there he began to inquire from the great sage Maitreya Muni. Text 2. Vidura uvacha sukhaya karmani karoti loko natai sukham van yaduparamam va vindeta bhuyas tata eva dukkham yadatra yuktam bhagavan vadennaha. Translation.
Translation: Vidura said, O great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities to attain happiness, but one finds neither satiation nor the mitigation of distress. On the contrary, one is only aggravated by such activities. Please, therefore, give us directions on how one should live for real happiness. Purport: Vidura asked Maitreya some common questions, which was not originally his intention. Uddhava asked Vidura to approach Maitreya Muni and inquire into all the truths concerning the Lord, his name, fame, qualities, form, pastimes, entourage, etc. And thus, when Vidura approached Maitreya, he should have asked only about the Lord. But out of natural humility, he did not immediately ask about the Lord, but inquired into a subject which would be of great importance to the common man. A common man cannot understand the Lord. He must first know the real position of his life under the influence of the illusory energy. In illusion, one thinks that he can be happy only by fruitive activities. But what actually happens is that one becomes more and more entangled in the network of action and reaction and does not find any solution to the problem of life. There is a nice song in this connection. Because of a great desire to have all happiness in life, I built this house. But unfortunately, the whole scheme has turned to ashes because the house was unexpectedly set on fire. The law of nature is like that. Everyone tries to become happy by planning in the material world, but the law of nature is so cruel that it sets fire to one's schemes. The fruitive worker is not happy in his schemes, nor is there any satiation of his continuous hankering for happiness. Hare Krishna.
Vidura uvacha. Vidura began to inquire, O great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities which neither lead to satisfaction nor the mitigation of distress. So please, how one should be happy, how one should live for real happiness. Now here we can see Vidura approaching Uddhava, the difference between Vidura approaching Maitreya. Vidura approaching Uddhava, it was an outpour that, my dear Uddhava, how is Vasudev, how is Kunti, how is Dwarka, and how is the Supreme Lord Krishna? But here, Vidurji, when he's approaching Maitreya Muni, Prabhupada says in the purport that Vidura asked Maitreya some common questions which was not his original intentions. It was just the hi hello questions. And hi hello questions to a great sage is that how to perfect one's life. What is the real goal of life? So this is how Vidura is approaching Maitreya Muni here. Out of his natural, so when Vidura approached, Uddhava had asked Vidura to approach Maitreya Muni and inquire from all the truths that he was wanting to know from Uddhavji, that truths about the Lord, his name, fame, qualities, pastimes, entourage, everything. But Vidura did not directly begin from there. He was the way he is, the way seasoned, trained, Saushalya, all the good qualities within himself. He knew how to approach whom in what context. And thus, out of his natural humility, he did not immediately ask about the Lord, but inquired for the subject matter which are of interest to the common people. So the common people, they are interested more in making this life happy and mitigating the distress. So what is called as, the what is, sorry, am I audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So what is called as dissatisfaction is people get what they don't want and people don't get what they want. This is the summary of, this world. People generally get what they don't want and people don't get what they want. And thus, there is always a illusion of hum honge kamayab eventually. So now here one has to be very clear about, the how we distinguish between the two lives, although both are the same, right? On the spiritual path, one has to act as if there is no tomorrow, in the sense that one should act with the sense of urgency. But when one is dealing on the Varnashrama path, one has to act as if one is going to leave a great legacy, by one's activities. And there has to be a nice balance and amalgamation, right? Sometimes we apply this principle of urgency in the material life and people become very reckless in their job. They just say, Prabhuji apne sath kya aane wala hai, and like that. Vidura is not doing this. Vidura has done lifetime of service to the state of Hastinapur. Time to time, many multiple times, he has tried to save Pandavas in so many schemes of Dhritarashtra and, the Duryodhan party. After performing his Varnashrama excellently, exceedingly well, right? So one has to balance these two inputs very well. Sometimes we mistake these two inputs, that, the spiritual input for the spiritual growth, and the Varnashram input, that is our contribution to society. And through that, through that our contribution to the world in general, it should not be mixed together, right? So one has to understand this very well. So here Prabhupada says that the material world is such a place. Again, Prabhupada is writing these statements after Prabhupada's whole life as a grihastha, and as a grihastha, Srila Prabhupada was extremely responsible. Extremely responsible. Okay. One after another, his 6 businesses were broke. His last business loss was 5 lakh rupees, which is like 500 crores in today's terms. And then he decided that maybe Krishna's plan is something different. So, and then Prabhupada writes says, the illusion one thinks I can be happy only by fruitive activities. But actually what had happens is the fire, the house, which is, I mean, you have a house and decorate it with fire, and the same fire consumes the house, and when is all left with just the ashes, right? So this is the law of nature, and laws of nature are extremely cruel. Prabhupada writes here. Okay, later some other time we will discuss. Laws of nature are not going to distinguish whether we are a devotee, non-devotee, whether we are advanced, not advanced. And Krishna's help will come only after we try our best in on the Varnashrama platform. Prabhupada writes in one purport, Prabhupada says, Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you have to fight. Krishna does not say, I'm quoting Prabhupada's words verbatim. Okay, he writes this in Teachings of Queen Kunti. Prabhupada doesn't say, oh, Krishna, oh, Arjuna. Oh, sorry, Krishna doesn't say, oh, Arjuna, go back, sit on the chariot backside and, uh, hookify some ganja and I will fight your battle for you. No. Krishna wants we have to fight our own battles, right? The Jayadrat, there are n number of battles where Krishna's help did come. There is no question of Krishna not helping his devotee. But Krishna's help comes only when we do our exceedingly 108%, not just 100%. Right? We have to do our well, 108% well, and then Krishna's help will come. Okay. So whenever a purport or a discussion we have to understand the context. When Vidura says this, Vidura is authority to say this because Vidura has completely performed his Varnashram duty exceedingly well. Right. Text 3. Now, this is one of the legendary verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. We will recite this verse. Okay. Janasya Krishnad Vimukasya Daivat
Janasya Krishnad Vimukasya Daivat
Dharmashilasya Sudukhitasya
Dharmashilasya Sudukhitasya
Anugrahaya Charanti Noonam
Anugrahaye Charanti Nunam
Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya
Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya
Janasya Krishnad Vimukasya Daivat
Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daivat
Dharmashilasya Sudukhitasya
Adharmashilasya Sudukhitasya
Grahaye Hacharanti Noonam
Anugrahaye Hacharanti Nunam
Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya.
Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya
One more time. Janasya Krishnad Vimukasya Daivat
Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daivat
Adharmashilasya Sudukhitasya
Adharmashilasya Sudukhitasya
Anugrahaye Hacharanti Noonam
Anugrahaye Hacharanti Nunam
Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya.
Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya
So this is the shloka when we see deity of Srila Prabhupada, or when we see our spiritual master, or our Shiksha Gurus, we should remember this in our minds. Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daivat. Translation?
O my Lord, great philanthropic souls travel on earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. Purport. To be obedient to the wishes of the Supreme Lord is the natural position of every living entity, but due only to past misdeeds, a living being becomes averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord and suffers all the miseries of material existence. No one has anything to do but render devotional service to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Therefore, any activity other than transcendental loving service to the Lord is more or less a rebellious action against the Supreme Will. All creative activity, empirical philosophy, and mysticism are more or less against the sense of subordination to the Lord, and any living entity engaged in such rebellious activity is more or less condemned by the laws of material nature, which work under the subordination of the Lord. Great unalloyed devotees of the Lord are compassionate towards the fallen, and therefore they travel all over the world with the mission of bringing souls back to Godhead, back to home. Such pure devotees of the Lord carry the message of Godhead in order to deliver the fallen souls, and therefore the common man who is bewildered by the influence of the external energy of the Lord should avail himself of their association.
Now here is how Vidurji is glorifying Maitreya Muni. Janasya Krishnad Vimukasya Daivat Adharmashilasya Sudukhitasya. O my Lord, Maitreya Muni, great personalities like you travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Lord to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Supreme Lord. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that to be obedient to the wishes of the Lord is a natural disposition for a living entity. It is just like fish and water, fish and ocean. It is the best natural for the fish to be part of the ocean. But sometimes the fish just becomes angry with the ocean, causeless unwillingness, and comes out of the ocean, is actually gasping for his life. And such personalities who are traveling on the banks of the shore of the sea, they will pick up the fish who is reluctant to take shelter of the ocean, convince the fish that highest welfare will happen to you only by taking shelter of the ocean and drop him inside the ocean. So, such are the personalities or the great soul. Prabhupada writes here that they are on the mission of the Supreme Lord to bring fallen living entities back home, back to Godhead. So, the Prabhupada says here actually, one has to do especially the devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And any endeavor in karma kanda, jnana kanda, siddhi, mysticism is more or less against the sense of subordination to the Supreme Lord. It is a kind of rebellion against the Supreme Lord. So one has to be very aware that Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita hai. Whatever is required to go back home, back to Godhead, is automatically done by performing one's devotional service, Krishna Bhakti. So, mission of the Lord is to take fallen souls back home, back to Godhead, and these great personalities, we call them as Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale. They are being sent to this world, Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale, to deliver the fallen souls and take them to the divine abode, the Supreme Lord, back home, back to Godhead. So, this is how Vidura, he is glorifying Maitreya Muni. Next, text 4. तत्साधुवर्यादिशवर्त्मशं न सम्राधितो भगवान् अन्येन पुंसां हृदि स्थितो यच्छति भक्तिपूते ज्ञानं सतत्वं सदिगमं पुर ज्ञानं सतत्वम् अधिगमं पुराणम्. Translation.
Therefore, most great sage, please give me instruction on the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, so that he who is situated in the heart of everyone can be pleased to impart from within knowledge of the absolute truth in terms of the ancient Vedic principles delivered only to those who are purified by the process of devotional service. Purport. As already explained in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the absolute truth is realized in three different phases. Although they are one and the same in terms of knower's capacity to understand. The most capable transcendentalist is the pure devotee of the Lord, who is without any tinge of fruitive action or philosophical speculation. By devotional service only does one's heart become completely purified from all material coverings like karma, jnana, and yoga. Only in such a purified stage does the Lord, who is seated in everyone's heart with the individual soul, give instruction so that the devotee can reach the ultimate destination of going back home, back to Godhead. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam. Only when the Lord is satisfied with the devotional service of the devotee does he impart knowledge, as he did for Arjuna and Uddhava. The Gyanis, Yogis, and Karmis cannot expect this direct cooperation of the Lord. They are not able to satisfy the Lord by transcendental loving service, nor do they believe in such service to the Lord. The bhakti process, as performed under the regulative principle of Vaidhi Bhakti or devotional service, following the prescribed rules and regulations, is defined by the revealed scriptures and confirmed by great acharyas. This practice can help the neophyte devotee to rise to the stage of Raga Bhakti, which is the Lord, in which the Lord responds from within as the Chaitya Guru, or the spiritual master as superconsciousness. All transcendentalists, other than the devotees, make no distinction between the individual soul and the supersoul because they miscalculate the superconsciousness and the individual consciousness to be one and the same. Such miscalculation by the non-devotees make them unfit to receive any direction from within, and therefore they are bereft of direct cooperation of the Lord. After many, many births, when such non-dualist comes to sense that the Lord is worshipable and that the devotee is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord, then only can he surrender unto the Lord Vasudeva. Pure devotional service begins from that point. The process of understanding the absolute truth adopted by the misguided non dualist is very difficult, whereas the devotee's way of understanding the absolute truth comes directly from the Lord, who is pleased by devotional service. On behalf of many neophyte devotees, Vidura, at the very first instance, inquired from Maitreya about the path of devotional service by which the Lord, who is seated within the heart, can be pleased. Hare Krishna.
Therefore, O Maitreya Muni, please give me instruction on the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, so that he who is situated in the heart is pleased, can be pleased to impart this transcendental knowledge and purified by the process of devotional service. Now, here, Vidura is addressing Maitreya Muni, the Lord to be pleased. Now, the same Lord who had remembered Vidura at the final moment of the Lord when he is departing to the spiritual world. And Vidura is crying, Ruro the prema vivvalai. But here, when he's taking the position as a disciple, he's taking the perfect position as a disciple. This is the greatness of Vidura. How beautifully he is inquiring from Maitreya Muni. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the absolute truth has to be revealed, has to be understood in three phases. Vadanti Tattvavidas. Tattvam Yajnanavadvayam. Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdate. That the Supreme Lord, just a second. That the Supreme Lord is revealed, the Supreme Absolute Truth is revealed in the three phases, that is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And there are performances of transcendentalism which go for there is a Jnana Kant, Dhyana Kant, and then Bhakti. Right? So there is a so Jnana Kant will more or less take one up to Brahman. Then Dhyana, one may realize Paramatma, but only by devotional service one can realize the absolute truth, personality of Godhead as Bhagavan Swayam. And because the other two parts, Karmakanda and Jnanakand, they are not directly related with the Supreme. They are very indirect process. Krishna also doesn't take direct interest in Karmakandi or Jnanakandi. He just leaves them on their own. But for a devotee, because bhakti is directly with the Supreme Lord, and there is a direct connection with the Lord, Krishna also directly connects with the devotee. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami. Dadami is personally I give buddhi yogam tam. I give buddhi yoga to them. Ye namam upayanti te. But this mercy, very special mercy, is not available to Karma Kandi or Jnana Kandi. And therefore, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Keval Vishera Bhanda. It is just the pot of the poison. And when first time I was hearing this, I was so surprised. How can Karma Kanda be pot of poison? Because Karma Kanda, you can go to heavenly planets, enjoy there, live a long life, live a life which is unimaginable for the richest man on the planet here. That kind of life one can live. But ultimately, from the purview of infinity, this life will again be passed away, passed on. Kshene punye martya lokam vishanti. Again, this fellow will go, and there will be a constant struggle to acquire punya, go to the heavenly planets, enjoy life there, come down. Acquire punya, go to the heavenly planets, enjoy there, come down. And this is nothing but a visha only, because that is keeping us away from, going back home, back to Godhead. And same is with Jnana Kanda. And that's why Jnanis, Yogis, and Karmis, they cannot expect the direct cooperation from the Lord. Ye yathamam prapadyante. Because they are not directly approaching the Supreme Lord, they also get very, very indirect blessings from the Lord. Right. Neither they want to satisfy the Supreme Lord, neither they believe in the process of satisfying the Supreme Lord, that is devotional service. But the devotees, they are very intelligent. Hey Krishna Bhakta, say Bada Chatur. He performs the Vaidhi Bhakti under the guidance of the Acharyas, just like Rupa Goswami has given this 64 items of devotional service. and slowly progresses towards the Raga Bhakti and becomes very, very dear to the Lord. So much so in Bhagavad Gita, I mean, when Krishna is talking about bhakti, finally Krishna says, Bhaktaste ativa me priya. They ativa means, I mean, there is another verse which says, he says, my dear Balaram, my devotees are so dear to me that I can give you up. He says to Balaramji, I can give you up, or I can cut off the limbs of my body, but I cannot give up my devotees. This is how the devotee of the Lord, ordinary living entity, becomes extremely dear to the Lord by the dint of his devotional service performed under guidance of a great acharya in the sampradaya. Whereas all other transcendentalists, they are simply lost understanding. They have no understanding of Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagwan. Most of them think that Jiva Shivacha milan ho gaya, Jiv ke saath Shiv mil gaya, and we become even such nice Ram Bhaktas also, but they have no understanding. They say that yeah, Ram Nam leke, we will become Ram only. Okay. The clear understanding of what happens to Jiva is not available in Jnana Marg or Dhyana Marg, Karma Kanda, nowhere. It is only in devotional service this knowledge is available, and therefore, because of the lack of this understanding, lack of this endeavor, Lord also doesn't cooperate. Such people will take a long time. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevah sarvamiti. Such people will take lifetime after lifetime on the path of Karmakanda and Jnanakand, and finally they will understand Vasudevah Sarvamiti, and then they will Prapadyate, they will surrender unto the Supreme Lord. But such time, it takes a long time. So this is the glory of devotional service. And here Prabhupada says here, on the behalf of many neophyte devotees, Vidura, in the very first instance, is inquiring from Maitreya Muni about the path of devotional service by which the Lord, who is Hridayastha, seated in everybody's heart, can be pleased. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur
Jai.
ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
27
Prabhupada.
जुलाई
Thank you,
पूर्वी को
Prabhupada.
गया लगे। Hare Krishna.